Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to your daily Newcastle podcast. A little bit of an oddie again, because we're supposed to be doing our crossover podcast with the Everton boys for the final game of the season on Sunday. They don't exist anymore, apparently. Oh no, what I was told was we do still exist. I'm still working, but I'm not available until next week. So they're coming back in time for the end of the season, which seems a little bit weird to me. But
They're
anyway,
terrified.
what that means is that we have a bonus podcast tonight rather than a blank podcast, which is excellent news. My name is Iain Mackay. I'm joined by Joanne and by Michael. Good evening.
Hey.
But this is the first time we've done a Mac and Mick and Joe mashup with three of us doing that. And basically, I've just thought of three subjects that I think are quite interesting. Whether I'm jumping the gun in discussing these or not, time will tell. But three separate parts, three separate questions. My first question to you guys is, maybe I am jumping the gun because it's not confirmed yet, but I'm presuming that Callum Wilson's time is over. He hasn't done enough minutes to be able to trigger an extension to his contract himself. Yeah. I don't think we want to particularly trigger a contract to pay him £100,000 a week to lie on the treatment table for 51 of those weeks next season. So, assuming Callum Wilson is gone, who do we need to replace him with? I don't mean specific players, although we can talk about specific players, but what type of profile do we need of a player to come in and back up Alexander Isak or nudge out Willa Sula? Or maybe it's Willa Sula. I don't know. I'm not going to give any answers until I've heard what you two have got to say. So I'll come to you first, Michael, because we're always going to Joanne first. And she always says, "Oh, don't come to me first. I'm coming to you first, Michael."
Go, Michael.
Well, I was about to do that myself. It's one of those where I think realistically, you'd love to see like a Victor Gyökeres or someone come in, particularly with the Isak connection. But realistically, that's not going to happen. There, that kind of player isn't going to want to be number two to, maybe the greatest striker on the planet right now. I'll leave that to someone else to decide. But what you're realistically going to need is someone who, a bit like Julian Alvarez behind Erling Haaland at the time. I'm not saying we should sign him because that would be baffling, given what I've just said. But I think it's one of those kind of players who's young, upcoming, 19 to 21, but still knows where the back of the net is. And then when Isak's looking a little bit fatigued, like he has for the last couple of weeks, we can't just bring someone on, but they've got to have legs. They've got to be relatively young. So I've just kind of described anyone really. They've got to have legs. They've got to be relatively
I love how big that is, Michael. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, any secondary school in the world, you're up next for Newcastle. No, I think it's got to be a pacey player because realistically, Alexander Isak's a fantastic ball carrier. He's great on the ball and he's relatively clinical as well. But I think what we're looking for is in games where we are going to play that counter-attacking style, someone who can come on even when we're 2-0 up and hit teams on the break. So pacey and clinical. Should be easy to find that, shouldn't it?
Right.
Well, I'm going to ask your question to Joanne straight away. So, Joanne, you can be the person who decides. Is Alexander Isak the best striker on the planet at the moment?
Not in current form, but yes. I know where Michael's going because I did kind of pull a face as he said it, but that's only because of current form, let's get real. Asked us a couple of months ago and we
been carrying this groin injury all year, apparently.
Right. All year. Oh, that's a bit worrying, isn't it, really?
This is the groin injury that kept him out for 10 games last season, apparently.
Yeah.
Which keeps flaring up.
But apparently it's not needed an operation or anything. According to how anyway. But look, all jokes aside, I think a couple of months ago, had we asked this before, he did sort of dip in form, whether it was injury related or not. We were all just waxing lyrical about Isak, weren't we? Like, nobody could touch him. And let's get real, we weren't the only ones. You saw a lot of the pundits talking about it. Nobody could really put anyone ahead of him. So it is still, you've got to take that kind of information and forget about the fact that he's carrying an injury. But yeah, let's just say he is the world's best striker, right? I am kind of with Michael. They have to have legs. It's very important that they've got 2 legs specifically.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
They're really fast with both of them.
Something wrong with my philosophy.
I know. One leg's not going to cut it, Michael. But yeah, so a 2-legged fast player would be awesome. But I do agree it would have to be someone young, because really it is going to have to be someone that's going to accept that they're going to be number 2. I know obviously we're being linked along with Delap, as with many teams are, by the way. But I do find it funny that the likes of Delap are insisting that they'll only go to a team in the Champions League. I mean, not being funny, Delap, like, who do you think you are for starters? I know you're a great player, but I love how all these players seem like they can just come out and be like, I'll only play for a Champions League team. Yeah, man, imagine if every single player just said that, and then nobody could buy you unless you were in the Champions League, sort of thing. So I think sometimes some players just get a bit ahead of themselves. Don't get me wrong, by the way. Excellent player, could do a great job for us.
Yeah.
Would he be happy being behind Isak, though? Bit of a, you know what I mean? So this is where I don't think the lap would come to us, personally.
I agree.
So yeah, someone that's happy to be an understudy, but Michael's bang on. It has to be someone of decent quality that we don't look to think, oh, hang on a second, we really are just bringing on someone for filling his space, if you know what I mean, for the last 10, 15 minutes or something. So it's a tough one, I think, because to find that level of quality, if you know what I mean, and like who's, you know what I mean? You know, I'm going with that one.
Is the person you two are describing, though, not Will Asula after he's had another full pre-season?
I said
clinical.
Another
Asula,
2 or 3 minutes of
Give him a chance,
2 or 3 months of coaching and training,
proper coaching,
and given the responsibility instead of. I mean, it must be really weird in his head to have everyone talking about how Eddie Howe doesn't trust him. That's why he's not playing him. If he's in training and doing well, which he must be, otherwise they wouldn't still be talking so positively about the future with him.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Will Asula, but I think we're all assuming as well that there's just one forward, because there is something called 4-4-2.
I agree.
What's that?
There
You
is.
start.
If we
The
have
ultimate
if we
formation.
have Isak up front, with another striker alongside him, Isak's more than capable of drifting off and coming in off the left in the way that, say, Eze does or Cunha does. So maybe we have got room in a team where Delap could play number 9, for example, or even Gyökeres could play number 9, with Isak taking the more left-hand side role. I don't know where Gordon fits in there, but then it doesn't have to be every game. It would be horses for courses, wouldn't it? And that's what we're going to have, is we're going to have a squad to pick different formations and different teams depending on the opposition.
Yeah.
Not just a first team with 2 subs who we want to see come on, and then everybody else hanging back waiting to see who gets injured as to whether they're going to be considered or not, which I think is where we are at the moment. So I hear what you're saying, and I do think, we want somebody who mentally is happy to be an understudy, learn off the greatest striker in the world at the moment. Why wouldn't you be happy to do that? But I'm not sure that they're going to be sitting on the bench all of the time. I think there are ways that we can cut the squad up and pick the team so that we need someone at the centre forward.
Yeah.
Because Isak might need a rest. Isak could be overdoing on the left. I mean, he played that role alongside Wilson last season quite well. Or was it 2 seasons ago now? Quite well. So who do you think it is? Have you got anyone? It's not Cunha, is it? Because he apparently has signed for Man United.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that if I wasn't going to go for the pacey wing, as you say, I'd go for someone who's in that number 10, who can be quite creative, because we struggle against a low block. But again, a pacey player can help rectify that as well. The issue is that there's not many players out there who, because it's not a priority position, really, either losing Callum Wilson, replacing Callum Wilson. So I think you're potentially looking at someone like, and I'm not saying it will be, but someone like a Yohan Wissa, who personally I wouldn't go for, just because, a couple of good seasons. I'd love Victor Osimhen with what sort of Isak on the left, as you were saying, cutting in, and then how we have whoever it is on the right, whether it's Murphy Barnes, playing as that true winger, creating the width on the outside, but then another player that's looked really, really good since leaving the Premier League, and maybe, just maybe, he'd want to return is Ademola Lookman at Atalanta. Scored a hat-trick in the Europa League final last year. Has done all right this year. Not as good as he had, but still had a great season. Matches Cunha for goals, actually, in that league. So maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of profile I'd go for. But how knows, a little bit better than me, so I'll leave it in his
Just a little
hands.
bit, Michael.
The solution might also be, of course, a predominantly right winger who can also go down the middle as well, like
Like an
Mbeumo
Mbuemo.
would fit that bill.
Yeah.
I was just about to say Mbeumo,
Or Semenyo would also fit that bill a little bit. Even Eberiche Eze would fit that bill. But I want that quality as backup. I want that quality second striker. I want somebody terrifying the opposition when they come on to replace Isak, not letting them think, oh, well, we've done our job now, we can put our feet up, which is what I felt Arsenal felt when they saw that they had Wilson to face on Sunday and not
Yeah.
Isak.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's something, no doubt, which we'll get a lot of opportunity to discuss as the summer unfolds. But yeah, I thought that was going to be interesting. Now, I'm going to pause that and move on to our second one for part two. But first, here is a word from Mr. Kenneth Davis regarding the Bioniq Supplement Company.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
That's the one with the very short gap, not the very long gap. So that nearly caught me out as I sat and waited for the last bit to come on, but he's already said it. Part two. Newcastle vying up until 48 hours ago or so to finish runners-up this year. With a win against Everton, I think we're odds on to finish fourth, assuming Man City win their last game. Languishing just above the relegation zone are two of the top six clubs. The one I was focusing on for part two is Tottenham Hotspur.
Mhm.
Have Newcastle replaced Tottenham Hotspur as one of the big six? Joanne, thoughts, please?
I don't know if you really want my thoughts on the whole big six, because I could probably rant on forever. I do like winding people up on social media because you always get a bite about it, especially about the wonderful stat about Arsenal having such good results against all the big six or the top six. And I was like, in what planet are Man U and Spurs classed as top six this season? I'm sorry, you've got to start rewording it a bit. I appreciate Man U are still up there because just of the history of the club, and they'll probably never ever drop away even if they got relegated. But Spurs, really? I don't agree. And yes, I do agree, sorry. So I don't agree that they are. And yes, I do agree that we've replaced them. I appreciate it will be debatable, and some people will say, don't be ridiculous, you've just won your first trophy in 70 years, etc., and all that sort of stuff. Knowing my luck, after I have admitted that I will be rooting for Spurs in tonight's Europa final, they'll probably go ahead and win it. And then everything I've just said will be irrelevant, because then they'll say, well, Spurs have won theirs, so that puts them back in the top six. So yeah, I mean, my opinion is yes, we've replaced them, but it's all very, very highly opinionated stuff, this whole big six, top six malarkey.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I think if it was down to results, then clearly we have. I mean, 6 1s and 4 0s the last two seasons. Results put us way ahead of Tottenham, and I think we've won twice at White Hart Lane the last two times as well. Not White Hart Lane, wherever they moved to. the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
We prefer White Hart Lane, it's fine. That was a proper stadium.
It was.
Yeah. No, we're calling them the big six, not the top six, because I think it's down to turnover. And I think that's why Man United will have to be terrible for a decade before they come out of the big six. Tottenham, however, and I've got this lovely big new stadium, and they really are working that well. I think they're commercially probably away from the football one of the most successful clubs in the Premier League. But I think it's all got to be underpinned by the football team, hasn't it? Michael, I picked Tottenham rather than Man U because we're closer to Tottenham. And our commercial star is definitely rising. I know the Adidas sponsorship deal has kicked in. We're still waiting for training ground sponsors, other sponsors as well to come through. A Champions League qualification would presumably boost those numbers as well, so that we'd be closing the gap on Tottenham. Have we replaced them yet?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, we will eventually, but I think it's going to be a battle to see who does replace them between us and Aston Villa, because as much as I hate to say it, Villa are pretty good at the minute. And they have been for the last, 4 or 5 years. Even under Gerrard, they were an okay team. Certainly better than what we were under Bruce. And since 2020, obviously, there's only 6 points separating us and Tottenham. There's only 2 points separating Tottenham and Villa. So in regards to results, we're relatively close until Spurs win the Europa League tonight. Fingers crossed. We're nowhere near Man United, unfortunately. It could be 3 trophies in 3 years for them. We could only dream of that. And then when you look at, you mentioned there, a turnover. It is the most important thing. Like when you look at how much Spurs bring in, obviously the Deloitte Football Money League that they released, table that they released earlier in the year, Spurs were 9th with 615 million or something like that. We were 15th with 370. So there's still 245, I think, something like that, million missing, that we need to catch up on them with. And it is the money. But I do think in 2-3 years, that top 6 will be a top 7, and it'll be obviously your Man City, your Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, potentially, depending on how they do. They've improved. I think they'll still be in there, but then it'll be Aston Villa and Newcastle United. And those 2 clubs will be the ones that really upset the Big Six. Well, the so-called Big Six going forward.
Good. Excellent. I'm pleased to hear that, Michael. I agree with you. That was my get out, was that we don't have to replace anybody in the Big Six. We just have to become a Big 7 or a Big 8, and I think that's the way things are going. It is amazing how this PSR protects the teams that are in there. It does cocoon them from anybody being able to catch up. However, if you get a run of results, and I think Man U have immunised themselves against being as dreadful as they needed to be to hurt that by randomly winning cups when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
But Tottenham haven't. Tottenham haven't won anything for how long is it now?
Was it 2007?
Yeah, it's a long time ago since they've won anything. So that's why I'm rooting for a Man U win tonight. Man U are going to be a Champions League quality side going forward. I don't think Tottenham will be if they don't get the fillip of that sort of funds from the Champions League. And you're saying we're 200 million behind them, Michael.
Not
if
for
they
long.
don't go in the Champions League, and we do, that could be half of it already made up next year.
Yeah, it's looking at it, thinking like, let's say I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan. I'm really not, but there is so much riding on tonight that I don't think they realise. The fate of their football club for the next 3-4 years is in the hands of Ange Postecoglou on one night, after the entire fan base has basically told him to go back to Australia for over a year. Like he wins, he always says he always wins trophies in his second year, but for the sake of Tottenham Hotspur, they're going to have to hope that he does, because if they don't, they're going down.
Yeah, because PSR does kick in at a certain level, particularly if you're not qualifying for European football when you're expecting to. Chelsea are another team who will be in a real hole if they don't qualify for the Champions League. Their match at Forest is enormous, I think.
They'll just sell another hotel, though.
They'll
scam it.
That would be 3 years without Champions League football. Of course, they might get into it next year, because if they win this Conference League, they'll end up in the Europa League, won't they? And winning that puts them in the Champions League. So, yeah, I think we're going to end up with a Big 8. I can't see where the big ninth is, but if it's a big 8, then that's a competitive Premier League year on year. And let's face it, when there's 5 teams vying for third down to 6, and they're all just a point apart, like it's finished off this year, that's super competitive.
Yeah,
which has got to be good. Now, that's great. Let's have an advert, which I believe Michael's going to do. I hope in the style of Donald Trump this time. Can you do that impression, Michael? Or
I'm going to avoid that just because our American listeners may, send threats to my house, and they have guns. We do not. So,
this is true.
As far as I'm concerned, Donald he's fine.
Safety first, Michael.
On this podcast, he's fine. Safety first.
Yes, but he's not interested in football. That's all right. Soccer?
Very doubted.
He's not interested in it. Anyway, Michael, let's have the Zencastr advert in whatever style you choose, mate.
Oh, thank you. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we've spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it is super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Tony's
Good
back.
work, and a little bit of Tony the Tiger to celebrate the end of the season.
Oh, yes.
Little
Last
bit.
one.
I've now actually got nearly a Tony the Tiger.
You do look like
shirt
Tony
on
the
tonight.
Tiger, don't you, Iain?
This actually, I was
You've done
told,
the dress
I didn't know
sense,
this. Somebody came up to me in the co-op, in the queue for paying, and said, "I love your shirt." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, it's the design of Van Halen's guitar. It's so cool." I had no idea it was the design of Van Halen's guitar, but there you go. I'm cool. I'm a rocker, apparently, which I also wouldn't have claimed. Anyway, welcome back, folks, to lovely part 3. I know this was going to be a good one, wasn't it? Oh, yeah. Oh, let's dream, guys. Let's dream. We're qualifying for Europe this year. I'm not sure if it's Europa League or it's Champions League. We've won our first trophy in 70 years. What are our realistic goals for Premier League season 25-26?
Total domination.
Joanne.
Just to get I'll kick it off ridiculous, and Michael, you bring it all back down to a normal level, please. Yeah.
Sorry.
I think, is it not year on year almost that we're going to now be aiming for Champions League for starters, if we're talking about league positions and stuff like that? I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm not going to say we're going to win the league yet. So not quite next season, but sometime soon. But yeah, I'm going to say, obviously, again, the aim is always going to be, I think always going to be like a top 4 finish. And again, maybe add to the trophies. I would hope that, I think Howe would want more decent cup runs again.
Yeah.
Can we repeat this year? Can we get another trophy? Can we finish top 4? I just think it's not going to go too crazy. Like I say, I'd love to sit here and go, yeah, we're aiming to win the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, blah, 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 whatever. We're not going to win the Champions League. That's ridiculous. We're not going to win the league. I know we're not going to win the league. That's getting way too excited. But if we could finish second where Iain, really wanted us to finish this season, you can stick that bet on, Michael. I keep calling you Michael, Iain. It's because I'm looking at Michael, sorry.
I got slandered for that, by the way, at the start of the season when I did that to you and Nick.
I know.
Disgrace.
I'm talking to Iain and I was looking at your face. I don't do well.
And why not?
Exactly. Such a handsome devil. But anyway, yes. So that would be my thing. It's got to be, again, you're just making us laugh now. Top 4 finish, potentially another trophy. Come on, would we not all be over the moon with that anyway? Yeah. I would.
I think that would be good, Joanne. However, I said to dream. If it's top 4 finish,
I mean, I can be ridiculous
and a trophy,
if you want.
top 4 finish and a trophy, that's just a season of consolidation. That's what we've done this year. I'm thinking that we're going to spend 150, 200 million on 3 or 4 first team players.
2 trophies then, yeah? Is that all right? 2 trophies.
I'm just going to leave that there,
110 points.
and then come over to Michael to see what he would think would be realistic goals for next year.
I think the realistic aim is exactly what Joanne said. Top 5. And
realistic one.
Yeah. However, I don't think it's going to happen because I think you're going to sit there and we're going to look at Liverpool. They've already strengthened their two weakest positions now, both fullbacks. They're going to spend money. They're going to bring in a striker. Arsenal are finally going to bring in a striker. City aren't going to be this dire again next season.
Surely.
Although Pep is threatening to walk, so if he does, hallelujah. And then we've also got the Champions League. We saw what it did to us last time. We're better prepared now. But I think as much as I want us to say we're in a title challenge, I think if we don't make Champions League and we end up in the Europa League, we could finish third, maybe even be in that title battle, because you're going to be playing the likes of Braga rather than Barcelona. Well, if we're in the Champions League, every single game you need Isaac Gordon, Bruno Tonali, all that playing. So it's going to be a lot. So yeah, if we don't get Champions League this year, title challenge next year. If we do make Champions League this year, I do think we'll be pushing Chelsea, probably Villa again for that fourth spot outside the big three. Unfortunately,
I want to say something on the back of what you just said then, Michael. If it's dependent on what we do this season, so say, for example, we do, because I was basing that on finishing Champions League, by the way. If we finish Europa, I've said this, I actually won't be too sad about finishing the Europa League spot, because I've said that we are totally going to go and win it. So actually, yes, we will win a trophy. We'll just win a bigger trophy next season. So there we go, right? That's my prediction. If we finish Europa, we're going to win it.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into Champions League regardless of position anyway. So it doesn't really matter if we do drift a little bit.
We'll do it Tottenham.
So there we go.
Oh, Man United.
Oh, no, please. I can't be dealing with that. Like, oh my God. I know. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because put that question to you then. I can flip this back on you guys. If it meant that we were in the Europa League final with a strong chance of winning it, would you be happily finishing 16th or 17th?
Oh,
not happily.
16th or 17th?
Well, you know what I mean. If we were in a strong position to win the Europa League final and would made it the final, a bit like Man U and Spurs, yeah?
Yeah.
Would you be happy in the position, essentially, what they've had? A really crap full season in the league, but one of them is going to walk away with the Europa League.
I'd say if you'd made it the Champions League final, I would have been happy, but Europa League, no. I think, and obviously Champions League, they're not in that position, so it's not a comparison. But
I mean, I'd like to say no as well, because I don't want a really crap league season.
I really don't mind. Because of the reason that you said, I think we'd have a damn good chance next year of winning the Europa League if we got into that competition.
Yeah.
100%.
As Man U and Tottenham have demonstrated this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind going into the Europa League if by challenging for second up until the penultimate game of the season, and then Everton beat us and we drop down into a Europa League place.
Everton would never beat us in the final game.
I can live with that.
God, Michael.
But I couldn't live with the sort of results that Man U have had all this year.
I agree.
We were kind of used to them for a long time, though.
God, I've had too many of them. I've been spoiled over the last 2 or 3 years.
This time last year, we would have, because we hadn't won it. Isn't it weird how now that we've won a cup,
perspectives
that edge has been taken off? It is, because this time last season, if we had this conversation, I'll hold my hands up and I would 100% say, yes, I will happily just scrape through, finish 17th, and we'll get a cup, because everyone was so desperate for a cup. I think now that we've had that little, it's just taken away that edge, hasn't it? So, yeah, I would no longer be happy with such situations. Simple as that. We're not desperate anymore. That's why.
I think it all hangs on what sort of a transfer window we have, or 2 transfer windows. Apparently, we've got some money to spend. Apparently, we're in a position where we can go and grab some goodies on the cheap
You'd hope
in this first little window, because Villa might have some PSR issues that we could take advantage of. I think with a really good transfer window, so the squad is strong. With the new Bunce effect, meaning that we don't get crippled by injuries by the end of October during our Champions League campaign, why not? I think we could be. I think we can. They're all 2-legged games in this Champions League till you get to the final, so they're all going to have to come and play at St James's Park on those nights.
Yeah,
I think we've got to. I think we'd go deep, like into the Champions League. I think we'd win the Europa League if we end up doing that. And I think we're a fantastic cup team. And Eddie has shown what a fantastic tactician he is to be able to get through any game if he's given a fair crack at the whip. So why not an FA Cup or a League Cup as well? It's exciting stuff, isn't it? I mean,
It is.
we're already exceeding where I ever thought Newcastle would get to, because I've watched them being rubbish for a long time. And it's just starting. This is where we can finally be in a position to consolidate that first influx of cash that came in when we were taken over. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think
Michael.
with that, if we do end up in the Champions League, and I think that campaign you mentioned there, you think would go far. I completely agree. You think it took 11 points for a team to go through to a knockout stage over 2 legs. I fancy us against anybody in the world. Maybe not like Real Madrid or PSG, but anyone except them. I'd fancy us against Liverpool, Arsenal, Barcelona, the lot. So all you've got to do is finish 24th or higher out of 36, something like that. And you got to remember that's including like Young Boys, Spotter Pro were in there this year. So we can definitely do that. We can definitely go far. And I think we'd match Villa this year at the very least until we came up like a PSG, because I know we smashed PSG 4-1, but they're a different proposition this year completely. But a PSG, Barcelona, or Real Madrid, or Atleti, I could see us losing Atletico Madrid. One of those it would take to knock us out, and we could go very far next year, particularly with Eddie Howe.
I hope we get Young Boys in the draw. I hope we play at their stadium as well, purely because it's just comedy gold.
You and Nicola are always hoping for Young Boys.
Hey,
Michael, be careful what you say now, because I was going to stop short as well. No, Michael, what am I doing? It's because I'm looking at your face. Stop! I'm covering you. Iain,
I've made no accusations here.
You haven't. It's not even you.
Right.
I'm having a bad night.
I think dreaming of next year's Champions League glory, and all of that is a great place to finish.
Yeah,
I'm dreaming of Champions League glory. Michael's dreaming of us getting very deep into that composition, and Joanne is just thinking about the Young Boys and how deep they might go,
and the name of their stadium, which is what I was going to. But I'm not going to say it.
Don't go there. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for listening to the Mac and Mick and Joe mashup, Thursday mashup. Oh, it got too complicated for me to remember it by the end of it.
Mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese
Oh,
mashup.
dear God.
We love it. Thank you very much for joining me, Michael. Thank you very much for joining me, Joanne. No more talk of Young Boys. We shall see you all for the preview tomorrow.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.